Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine managing a team of 50 top engineers in your home country, only to move abroad and find yourself fetching coffee for a 20-something boss who treats you like you know nothing. This is the painful reality for Vikram. Today, we're diving into a powerful new story called the Overqualified Intern. We'll explore how to navigate toxic workplace dynamics, swallow your pride, and finally stand your ground when people underestimate you. As always, while we follow Vikram's journey to reclaim his career, you'll learn advanced English vocabulary, professional phrasal verbs, and natural expressions you can use in real-life business situations. Get ready to listen, learn, and level up your English. Let's get started with Chapter 1. Vikram stood in front of the glass skyscraper, smoothing down his ironed suit jacket. In his home country, he had spent a decade managing a team of 50 software engineers. His decisions had moved millions of dollars, and his leadership was unquestioned. But today, he was starting from scratch. To break into the local tech market, he had accepted an unpaid internship at a mid-sized firm. He told himself it was just a temporary stepping stone to get crucial local experience. When he arrived at his desk, he was greeted by Chloe, a 20-something coordinator who didn't look up from her phone. "Great. First, we need to get you set up on our database. It's a very complex system, so try to keep up." Vikram stared at the screen. It was the exact database framework that he had personally helped design and open source 5 years ago. He knew every line of its architecture. "To search for a file, you click here," Chloe explained slowly, using exaggerated hand gestures as if speaking to a child. "Got it? Or is that too fast?" Vikram felt a sudden heat rise to his face. A younger version of himself would have corrected her instantly, displaying his extensive resume. But he remembered his mortgage, his family, and the hundreds of rejection letters he had received over the past 6 months. He swallowed his pride. "I understand, Chloe. Thank you," Vikram said softly. He had to bite his tongue, realizing that his hardest task this month wouldn't be the work, it would be surviving the humiliation. By week 2, Vikram's daily routine had dwindled to tasks that required zero technical skill. Every morning began exactly the same way. Chloe would hand him a specific, overly detailed coffee order and point him toward the cafe down the street. "Make sure they put exactly 2 pumps of vanilla syrup, Vikram," she would say, speaking with painful slowness. He would nod patiently, carry the tray back, and then spend his afternoon clearing paper jams in the copy room. Chloe treated him like a shadow, only acknowledging his presence when she needed a menial errand completed. During a brief afternoon break, Chloe casually asked him about his background while waiting for a document. "So, did you use computers much before you moved here?" asked Chloe, her voice dripping with unconscious bias. Vikram paused, a stack of heavy printer paper balanced carefully in his hands. He thought of the large-scale server migrations he used to oversee every single quarter. He thought about the automated cloud architecture he had built entirely by himself. "Yes, I worked with technology quite a bit," Vikram replied, keeping his voice carefully neutral. Chloe gave a polite yet completely dismissive nod, clearly not paying close attention to his answer. "That's nice. Well, this office runs at a very fast pace, so it might take you a while to adjust." She took her documents from the tray and walked away without waiting for him to reply. Vikram leaned heavily against the cold copy machine, letting out a long, slow breath. The tedious tasks were exhausting, but the constant underestimation was becoming harder to bear. On Tuesday morning, the entire engineering department gathered in the main conference room for an emergency meeting. A severe data bottleneck was completely stalling a critical software project for their biggest client. Vikram sat quietly in the back row, holding a notepad he hadn't yet been asked to use. Up at the whiteboard, the senior developers were sweating, fiercely debating how to fix the broken pipeline. Chloe stood near the projector, nervously biting her lip as the team lead demanded immediate answers. "If we don't resolve this bug by Friday, the client is going to pull their funding," the lead warned sharply. Vikram looked at the lines of code projected on the wall and instantly spotted the flaw. It was a classic concurrency error, a technical issue he had written a widely read blog post about 3 years ago. He knew exactly which 3 lines of code needed to be rewritten to solve the entire problem. For a brief second, Vikram opened his mouth, prepared to offer his valuable insight to the room. Then he caught sight of Chloe, who gave him a sharp look that clearly signaled him to stay in his lane. The unwritten rule of the corporate culture was crystal clear: unpaid interns do not speak during crisis meetings. He watched the team spin their wheels for another hour, chasing incorrect theories and getting nowhere. Vikram closed his notepad, feeling a deep, frustrating ache at being forced to play the silent observer. He possessed the ultimate key to their massive problem, but he wasn't even allowed to join the conversation. By Thursday night, the office was completely deserted, except for Vikram sitting under the dim fluorescent lights. The engineering team had gone home defeated, completely exhausted from trying to hit the looming Friday deadline. Vikram looked at his jacket on the chair, knowing he should leave, but his professional pride kept him glued to the seat. He could not let a beautifully designed system fail just because the team was too blind to see the error. He pulled up the company's shared code repository on his laptop and logged in using his basic intern credentials. With steady, practiced fingers, Vikram bypassed the superficial layers and accessed the core back-end architecture. He quickly deleted the problematic bottleneck and wrote a clean, elegant fix to resolve the synchronization flaw. He knew that if he signed his name to the edit, Chloe would likely fire him for overstepping his boundaries. Instead, he routed the code submission through an anonymous system administrator account, leaving no personal trace. He pushed the update live to the server, shut down his computer, and walked out into the quiet night. The next morning, an explosive cheer suddenly erupted from the main engineering floor. "The data is flowing," the team lead shouted in disbelief, staring blankly at his monitoring dashboard. Chloe quickly checked the system log and shrugged, completely baffled by how the issue had magically vanished overnight. "It looks like a random system glitch just resolved itself," Chloe announced to the department, relieved. Vikram stood in the corner holding a tray of hot coffees, watching the team celebrate a victory he had authored. He didn't receive an ounce of credit, but a small, confident smile returned to his face for the first time in weeks. The brief feeling of satisfaction didn't last long, as Monday morning brought a harsh return to reality. Before Vikram could even sit down at his desk, Chloe marched over, her face flushed with anger. She threw a stack of unorganized client folders onto his keyboard, creating a loud, echoing thud. "Vikram, these physical files were supposed to be digitized and uploaded to the server by Friday afternoon," she snapped. "Because of your carelessness, the account manager couldn't access the client data over the weekend." Vikram opened his mouth to explain that he had never been given those folders, nor the access codes to upload them. In fact, another junior employee had left them on a side table, completely forgetting the assignment. "I'm sorry, Chloe, but I wasn't assigned this task," Vikram said, keeping his voice as calm as possible. Chloe scoffed loudly, crossing her arms and refusing to listen to his explanation. "Don't make excuses, Vikram. As an intern, your only job is to support us, not to drop the ball on simple tasks. If you can't handle basic filing, maybe you aren't cut out for a fast-paced environment like this." The unfair accusation cut deep, and Vikram felt a dangerous surge of anger rising in his chest. He thought of his decades of flawless leadership, only to be used as a convenient scapegoat for someone else's mistake. He looked at the folders, then at Chloe's dismissive expression, realizing he had finally reached his breaking point. He had to make a choice: let the humiliation crush him and quit, or find a way to stand his ground with dignity. Instead of walking out, Vikram took a deep breath, organized the messy folders, and decided to stay focused. Later that afternoon, he walked into the break room and found Maya, a new junior intern, sitting alone. Her head was buried in her hands, and he could hear her quiet, stressed breaths as she stared at her laptop. On her screen was a massive data analysis spreadsheet that looked completely disorganized and full of formatting errors. "Are you doing all right, Maya?" Vikram asked gently, setting down his cup of tea on the table. Maya looked up, her eyes red and completely overwhelmed by the pressure of her first corporate role. "Chloe assigned me this data tracking project, but the formulas keep breaking," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If I don't finish this by tomorrow morning, I'm terrified she's going to fire me." Vikram pulled up a chair, his natural management instincts instantly overriding his own exhaustion. "Don't worry," Vikram said with a reassuring smile. "Let's look at it together and break it down step by step." For the next 2 hours, Vikram quietly stepped into the role of an experienced patient mentor. He didn't just fix the errors for her, he taught her how to structure the data and prioritize her heavy workload. He explained complex data concepts using simple, clear logic that made perfect sense to her. By the end of the session, Maya's anxiety had vanished, replaced by a newfound sense of confidence. "Wow, Vikram, you explain this better than any of our professors," Maya said, looking at him with genuine respect. Vikram smiled, realizing that even in a low position, his decades of leadership skills could still change someone's day. The next morning, Vikram was organizing the mail when he heard loud, tense voices coming from the main corridor. He walked toward the sound and found Chloe and Maya standing outside the manager's private office. Chloe was holding the completed data tracking spreadsheet, her face twisted in absolute disbelief. "There is no way you built this advanced data model by yourself, Maya," Chloe said, her voice dripping with suspicion. "This level of structural optimization requires years of high-level back-end engineering experience." Maya swallowed hard, looking trapped and desperately trying to protect Vikram from getting into trouble. "I had some guidance," Maya admitted quietly, looking down at the floor to avoid Chloe's sharp eyes. "Vikram showed me how to restructure the database architecture and clean up the broken code formulas." Chloe stiffened instantly, her eyes flashing with a dangerous mix of shock and intense professional jealousy. She turned around, spotted Vikram standing at the end of the hallway, and marched straight toward him. "What do you think you're doing, Vikram?" Chloe hissed, confronting him directly in front of the team. "You were an unpaid intern here to learn, not to overstep your boundaries and mess with core project files. If you think you can show me up by interfering with my junior staff, you are sorely mistaken."
Vikram stood tall, refusing to flinch or look down as Chloe tried to humiliate him in public. "I was simply helping a colleague solve a technical roadblock, Chloe," Vikram replied, his voice deadpan and steady. Chloe felt completely threatened by his calm confidence, realizing that her quiet intern was far more capable than she could ever handle.
On Friday afternoon, the office atmosphere turned completely frantic as the team prepared for a massive client presentation. The department head and the prospective investors were already seated inside the glass boardroom waiting for the demonstration. Chloe stood at the front of the room, her hands trembling as she tried to load the live software prototype. Suddenly, the projection screen flashed a bright crimson error message and the entire system went completely dark. A catastrophic server failure had crashed the platform right before the most important pitch of the fiscal year. "The back-end servers are completely locked up," the lead engineer panicked, furiously slamming his fingers against the keyboard. Chloe turned pale, completely frozen by the sudden crisis as the department head stared at her with a cold, demanding look. Seeing the entire company on the verge of disaster, Vikram decided it was time to drop his quiet intern persona. He stepped forward, walked straight into the tense boardroom, and gently took the master laptop away from Chloe. "Excuse me," Vikram said, his voice carrying a deep, natural authority that instantly quieted the chaotic room. He opened a terminal window, bypassed the broken interface, and began typing complex lines of code at lightning speed. He maintained absolute composure, methodically tracing the server error back to a minor configuration loop. With 3 precise keystrokes, Vikram forced a global system override and successfully brought the entire platform back online. The presentation screen illuminated instantly, displaying the flawless working software prototype to the amazed audience. The department head let out a sigh of relief, looking at Vikram not as an intern, but as a savior. Chloe stood frozen in the corner, completely stunned by the incredible display of technical mastery she had just witnessed. Following the dramatic boardroom rescue, the department head immediately called a private meeting to investigate what had happened. He sat across from Vikram, reviewing the basic single-page intern application that Chloe had filed away weeks ago. "You just bypassed a global server lockout in less than 2 minutes, the department head said, looking deeply puzzled. "Who exactly are you, Vikram? Because an ordinary unpaid intern does not possess that level of technical mastery." Vikram leaned back in his chair, realizing it was finally time to pull back the curtain on his past life. He pulled out his true, comprehensive international resume and handed it across the mahogany table. The department head scanned the document, his eyes widening further with every single line he read. "You managed a department of 50 engineers? You helped develop the open-source database framework we use every day." He looked up from the paper in absolute shock, suddenly feeling incredibly embarrassed by how the company had treated him. "We have been using a world-class technology expert to shred papers and fetch morning coffees," the manager muttered. Chloe was called into the office next, looking incredibly small and anxious as she stood before the department head. She was forced to look at Vikram's actual credentials, her face turning bright red as her deep biases were exposed. "You completely dismissed his background because he lacked local experience," the department head reprimanded her sharply. "Your job was to discover talent, Chloe, but instead your insecurity almost caused us to lose our best asset."
Vikram watched the confrontation calmly, finally feeling a profound sense of vindication after months of quiet humiliation. On Monday morning, Vikram arrived at the office, but he didn't head toward his usual small intern desk. Instead, he was escorted directly to the executive floor, where a spacious corner office was waiting for him. The department head slid a formal employment contract across the desk, offering him a senior director position. "We want you to lead our entire infrastructure team, Vikram," the manager said, looking at him with immense respect. "This role comes with a competitive executive salary and full health benefits, effective immediately." Vikram looked out the large glass window at the city skyline, realizing his long period of struggle was finally over. However, he did not sign the contract immediately. He knew that he had to stand up for those still left behind. "I will accept this offer on one condition," Vikram stated firmly, looking the department head directly in the eyes. "We must completely restructure the company's hiring policy and corporate internship program from the ground up. No professional, regardless of where they come from, should ever have their experience dismissed just because they are new to the country." The department head nodded in agreement, recognizing that Vikram's wisdom was exactly what the company's culture needed to grow. By that afternoon, Vikram was officially introduced to the engineering department as their new structural director. When he walked past Chloe's desk, she stood up immediately, offering him a polite, nervous nod of genuine respect. Vikram smiled warmly, acknowledging him without any lingering resentment, ready to move forward into the future. He had successfully turned a period of intense humiliation into a systemic victory for himself and future immigrant professionals. He was finally back where he belonged, leading a talented team and working on equal footing with everyone else. Vikram went from clearing paper jams to running the entire department, all because he stayed patient, kept working hard, and stood his ground when it mattered most. It's a powerful reminder that your true value can never be hidden for long. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt underestimated in your career or had to start completely from scratch in a new place? Drop your thoughts and practice your English in the comments below. I read and reply to every single one. You can find all the vocabulary of the story down below in the description box. If you enjoyed learning advanced business vocabulary with Vikram's story today, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life English lessons. Click right here to dive into our next story, and I will see you there. Goodbye.